Hi, everybody.
All right, so here's Mark Duplass.
And my flowers.
And his flowers. Mark, as you know, I'm at Variety, and he's what we call a multi-hyphenate, meaning he's an actor, he's a director, he's a producer, he's a writer. He and his brother Jay are the founders of Duplass Brothers Productions. They recently inked a 4-movie deal with Netflix. They have a hit show called Togetherness on HBO, which is one of my favorites. You have to see it, it's incredible. And they have done so much, it's hard to keep track, from Puffy Chair, an actor on the League, to just so many things that are just incredible.
I can pull up my IMDb page if you want. We can just make this the whole
from Cyrus
thing if you want.
So he's done quite a lot, and Ted Sarandos, who's the Chief Content Officer of Netflix, recently said of you that you and your brother are two of the most informed and inventive. Not only have you successfully taken advantage of the digital model of filmmaking, but you've done so with the help of so many of your friends and partners in life. You've worked a lot with Steve Zeiss, who's incredible, and your wife Katie, and obviously your brother. How has being with those people and having their support really helped to maintain sanity in a business that is often fickle?
That's a good question. Yeah, we kind of, I guess we call it tribing up, and it's something that I never necessarily planned on. I kind of fell into the film industry. I grew up in the suburbs of New Orleans and didn't really have any connections or any way of getting into the film business other than just me and my brother making dorky short films with our parents' video camera. And then eventually we made a small one that got into Sundance, and we just felt so overwhelmed with how to navigate that world that we just started clustering our friends around us. And a lot of the people you see here, Ross Partridge and Jen LaFleur, are two of my closest friends. We've been working together for over 10 years now, and as you said, my wife Katie and my brother. And I think part of it for me is knowing that I'm going to be surrounded by people who are willing to kind of maybe check the ego at the door because we're friends and we love each other, so I feel safe. And then part of it is also, we just really fucking like each other at this point, and life is short, and making independent films and TV is just really hard. And I've been doing this for 10 or 12 years now, and you start to realize that the process is almost as important as the product. So yeah, we really like working with people over and over again, and kind of, I guess, just feeling the strength of numbers, and that is also very integral to my relationship with my brother, where, which is one of the most complex relationships I can imagine. But ultimately having somebody to lean on is it's just the greatest.
I also think what's interesting is sometimes you just act in a project.
Mm-hmm.
You just act in the League. The one I love with Elizabeth Moss was an amazing movie, and that you were acting in. And how do you, and your brother Jay, who's obviously untransparent, how do you choose which projects you just want to be in and which projects you really want to get behind the camera and have creative control over?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the way I've sort of built my career, again, this is sort of just one person's perspective, because I had no industry connections, no clue how to navigate the world of let me send my script to an agent, maybe they'll read it. I just started making stuff. And that engine has sort of continued to roll, and something interesting happened, which was we made our first short film in 2003. It was a $3 movie that got into Sundance, and it looked terrible, and it sounded terrible, and it was made by me and my brother in our kitchen. I'm not kidding. And we used our parents' video camera that had a dead pixel right in the middle of it. But we kind of discovered if you have a decent story and a decent performance that people connect to, they'll program it. And that told us a lot. And then so we made our first feature, The Puffy Chair, which was a $10,000 to $15,000 movie by the time it was done, using the same principles that we had built upon our earlier career, which is, we're not going to wait on anybody to give us some money to make this thing, and we're just going to go out and do it. And that worked out really well, yet still we weren't really making money and having a sustainable career. But at that point, we like caught the eye of Hollywood enough that like people like Fox Searchlight and Sony Classics were saying like, hey, we'll hire you guys to write a script. We will pay you guys to make a movie. And that process, which is where we made our first studio movie, Cyrus, and our second movie, Jeff Lives at Home, are the two sort of studio movies we've made. And at the end of the day, I'm so grateful for those people who paid for those movies, but I got my ass handed to me making those movies, and I had to fight tooth and nail to make the kind of movie I wanted to make. Because those were multiple $1 million movies, and they were trying to make their money back. And I get it. Like, they were trying to secure their investment. And it taught me something really big, which is like, I like playing in a tiny corner of the sandbox where movies are made for a few $100,000. There's very little risk on the line, and where I can hopefully either find investors to help me, or as I've progressed in my career, by being on the league, I use a lot of the money I make from that to sort of pay for the movies, which is what I always loved about what John Cassavetes did. He would go act in a big movie, take the money, go make his little movie with his friends. And that has been so creatively rewarding for me. Again, it was never a mastermind or a plan. It was really just me thinking like, what's gonna be the most fun, fulfilling, creative experience? So to your question, most of the things we make now are self-generated. Even the one I love was an idea that I had that I brought to some filmmakers. We fleshed it out. I paid for the whole movie. We made it. We took it to Sundance. We sold it. I try to be a generous financier so that like everybody who worked on the movie for cheap then shared in all the profits, and everybody did great. The cool thing about that movie was even if it sucked, even if we totally failed, we had a fun little sci-fi rom-com with Elizabeth Moss in it. It was always going to make its money back. So I try to make movies now where I'm thinking, if I totally fail at this, worst case scenario, just by having this person on the cover, or like with Creep, that horror concept, I'll be able to make my money back. And that just takes all the pressure off and allows us to take chances. And then it's just all upside. Because I was really in more of a fear-based position making studio films, thinking, fuck, I have to make $6 million back. And they're like, we have to make our $6 million back. Why aren't those throw pillows prettier? And I'm just like, Jesus, kill me. This is gonna be horrible. So that's kind of where we're at right now is, I guess there are opportunities for us to make things with more money sometimes, but it just feels really fun to band up with Ross and Jen and Katie and my brother and go make our stuff.
So I'd read about you guys that when you were living in New Orleans and cable came to town, 1982-ish, when we all got cable and MTV came on, you and your brother, you weren't really into like the big movies like Star Wars per se. You were really watching these, character-driven, kind of dramatic TV series where people got to finally swear on TV and be naked, and divorce was, something that was suddenly in the mainstream. How did becoming a fan of those types of shows and series and movies affect your art today? Because I think it really is a throwback, I think.
Yeah, I think I was always like a melancholic kid who was into people, and so was my brother. But I think the advent of HBO had a massive influence on me. I have to say that because I have a show on HBO, right? They're like behind the stage right now, watching me. But it really did, and I think that something very unique happened with that HBO thing, which I don't know if you guys remember it, but like now you turn on HBO and they're pretty good about putting on the G and the PG stuff before 7 p.m., and then they run the R-rated movies afterwards. That wasn't happening in like 1983. I come home from school, Sophie's Choice is on. I'm just like, all right, I'll watch this. And then you roll right into Terms of Endearment, you roll right into Kramer versus Kramer, and so for me, and I get in trouble with this in certain rooms, like I just wasn't into like the Star Wars as much. My lightsaber was like late 70s divorce ennui. It was more my jam, as it were. And it really did shape us. It really just got us into, people and faces, which is like pretty much all we have to offer. That's just all we're into.
Yeah. So, which leads me to, right now you do have a hit show, HBO, and I imagine the budget is slightly greater than it has been on some of your other projects.
It's a ton greater, yeah.
Yeah, so, and you're working with amazing actors, you know, Melanie and Amanda and Steve, who you've worked with, and it's just, I can't emphasize how wonderful this show is enough. But
you could keep
I
going.
could.
We're on the air right now.
I mean, I've watched like 6 episodes of this season. I think
Mhm.
you're probably on episode 2.
Yeah.
On regular.
And how'd you feel about those episodes?
Oh my God.
Were they so good?
They're so good. It's so
Yeah.
sad and so
What
real.
was like if you had to name like your 10 favorite parts? What would it be?
Do you want me to give it away? What can I say? Okay. Because there's one that the projectile vomit thing that filmed already. So that's where everyone else is left off. But it gets more and more magical. The next episode is just so fantastic.
Thank you.
But I won't say what happened. So
All right, you can stop now. You're really gushing.
Sorry.
Okay? I don't know where you get this from.
I'm kind of brown nosing it, I know. So, but has it changed your process at all? Because now you are, because there is less pressure when you don't have a big budget. There is less pressure. Now you have a big budget.
Yeah, HBO is really awesome, and I don't want to speak too soon, but they are very, very supportive of this kind of thing. And, before I get too geeky, how many of you are like either in the film industry or interested in being in the film industry, filmmaker-y type? Okay, good, so I'm gonna get dorky. Here's what's great about HBO, here's what's great about television right now. On network TV in the past, and even still now to a certain degree, you had to have a show that fulfilled what's called all 4 quadrants, right? All the audiences. So you had to have a show that was hitting older women, older men, younger women, younger men, right? That is no longer the case. When you're on a place like Netflix or HBO, all you need to do is fulfill a really cool niche that people are passionate enough about to spend $15 a month on. So actually, our togetherness numbers are not huge, but they're extremely passionate, and it's a sliver of the pie that keeps coming back, and they will subscribe to HBO just to get that. So that makes it great for me to not have pressure to deliver Game of Thrones numbers. We're all drafting off of Game of Thrones, is what's happening, and it's a wonderful thing.
You work with the wife of Game of Thrones.
And I work with the wife of Game of Thrones. She's married to the show. It's exactly what it is. And so we're just in a really luxurious position. I feel like HBO right now is a little bit like what Hollywood was in the early 70s, where it was like, we're excited to support these things. If they make us a ton of money, great. If we lose a little bit of money, no big deal. We're making great stuff. We're going to keep plowing forward. So that's probably going to change soon because everybody's making television. All the numbers are coming down. But right now it's really good.
So I look at everything that you've done, and even I get a little overwhelmed by all the things that you're doing. And I kind of had a question for aspiring filmmakers or professional filmmakers that are working. You've talked a lot about the cavalry. The cavalry isn't coming for you, meaning you have to take your career into your own hands. You have to do it yourself. You and your brother, you do so much. What kind of tips and advice can you give to someone that they don't need to be Mark Duplass, but they just need to have some sort of creative control over their art and their work? Yeah. Where do you start? Do you still make a short? Do you make a feature? Do you write, where does one go?
I know it is so tricky, and I hate to be like, to get too didactic about it, but I can only speak from my own experience, and what I do think about, I guess the road that I tend to recommend continually, the good thing about it is that it doesn't require anything other than a shit ton of hard work, your own ingenuity, and your like absolute refusal to give up. Nice dose of desperation, anxiety and depression also help to drive. Have a real healthy bit of that. So what I try to recommend is my brother and I tried to go out and make the Great American Feature when we were in our early to mid 20s, and we used to run an editing business, and we saved up like $60,000, and we went and shot a movie called Vince Del Rio. That was a very poignant, dramatic story about a runner from the South Texas border, played by me. We didn't know much about this subject matter, but we wanted to make a movie that felt like Rocky. And we didn't know what we were doing, and we paid for it out of our pocket, and it was a steaming pile of dog poop. And we realized that quickly after editing, and it killed us. And it took us about 1.5 years to maybe 2 years to recover from that. And I don't want to see that happen to other people. Side note, you might be able to go out and make your first feature and have your vision down, Most people don't. I definitely didn't. So what I recommend is like the $5 short program, which is basically use your iPhone, use either iMovie or a cracked cut copy of Final Cut Pro. I didn't say that. And get together your smartest friends. They don't have to be filmmakers. They don't have to be actors. Just people who know you well, that you feel safe around, that you can fail in front of. And put together one scene that's 5 minutes or less that takes place between, ideally, 3 people or less. I would actually start it with 2 people. And try to shoot a scene that is very, very derivative from your life, that feels like the last conversation you had with either your sibling or your best friend or your loved one when you were like giggling at 2 a.m. about how ridiculous you felt telling a story about what happened to you. Something in there is like probably where your voice and your special sauce is, and I tend to ask people to go into that first before your filmmaking skills kind of get really down. Hi there, nice to see you. Oh, they can't see me, okay. Hi guys, I'm Mark Duplass. You want to start over?
Start over from the beginning.
Yeah. And once you make a bunch of those, you'll probably hit on something that feels like you. And you should be showing these to your friends and ask for honest feedback. Say, what's working, what's not, what's interesting. They might say, the whole thing sucks, but God, that moment where you had that explosive laughter over the toaster, there was something great there. Chase that, go make another one like that. And then usually when you get that, it doesn't matter that it costs $5, that it looks like shit on your iPhone and sounds like shit. Festivals, I know a lot of the festival programs, they're dying for anything inspired and new. It doesn't have to have good production value. That's one of the big misconceptions about film festivals, is that they're looking for a glossy thing. They don't care. They want something inspired. So take that movie, take it to a film festival, and then what you want to do is write like the $1,000 feature version of that short, whether it includes that same plotting or at least just has the same elements and feel to it. So let's say that short was, about the 2 roommates who fought over the fact that they should get a new toaster or should not get a new toaster, and it all came crumbling down about the fact that one of them slept with the other one's girlfriend and he knew it the whole time and never admitted it. Whatever it might be, that might be your short. So you should take that feel and you should expand it into the feature, and you should go make that feature. And you'll now have a film festival connection through your short, and you can play it there. And then the goal is to start snowballing these things upward. And hopefully, in my opinion, if you've made $1,000, $2,000 cheap feature that's good, that holds water, and you've played festivals with it, you're kind of now at the point where you can probably attract an actor who has been on maybe 9 seasons of a procedural crime television show, is super rich, fucking hates their life, has no creative fulfillment whatsoever, and you can go to them and be like, hey, I want to craft a role for you. You tell me what you want to play, you tell me when you want to shoot, you tell me what your hair to look like, you tell me everything, and I will build you something. And when you do that, they will be so excited to feel young with you again and inspired that this person will give you everything creatively. And they will also give you, and I don't mean to sound this manipulative, they will give you their incredible foreign value when it comes time to selling your film, which is really important. So now you're in this place where maybe I'm going to make a $10,000 movie with this depressed procedural ex-star. But the minute I'm done with this, it's going to be worth at least 50 grand based upon whoever's going to buy it on VOD on iTunes. It could be worth a ton more if we hit it out of the park, but I'm safe. So I can literally put this $10,000 budget on my credit card because I got this guy, and this guy's going to guarantee I get my money back. And then from there, you just keep building that thing. And this is maybe a little bit ahead of the game, but to the end of independent film is a pain in the ass until I get to Hollywood and they start paying me to do it. Please forget about that. Please, please, please. Because my whole thing, if I can say anything of worth, is that independent film is an end game unto itself. It is a way to be financially sustainable for you and your cast and your crew. And what's happening in the industry right now is there's going to be about 4 or 5 major players in about 10 years. It's going to be like Netflix. It's going to be some version of like Sony and Paramount once they unite underneath Viacom. It's going to be about like 4 monsters out there, okay? And all they're going to start doing is looking around for people who they can license blocks of content, which is one of my least favorite words. It totally devalues anything. But if you can own your $5 short, your $1,000 movie, your $10,000 movie, your next $50,000 movie, your $100,000 movie, and then 30 years from now, you have like 20 movies that you've made on your own that you've been selling to, you know, IFC for a 10-year license and Magnolia for a 10-year license. You're gonna have this massive package of stuff you've built, and Viacom and Netflix is gonna be like, wow, these are all well-reviewed movies, and when I normally buy a package of movies, it costs me $1 billion, and I can get all of these movies from this guy for $20 million. It's nothing. It's dirt cheap. And then you can retire and forget all about this shit, because it's fucking painful.
Before I open it up to audience questions, I want to talk to you about Tangerine, which is a movie that you filmed on an iPhone 5S, I believe, and was one of my favorite films of last year. I think, you know, transgender has become so trendy, if you will, and I hate that word. And this is a film that did really well at the Independent Spirit Awards. Is so beautiful. I don't know how you got those performances out of those, you know, girls. It's just amazing.
Sean Baker did.
Sean Baker is the director.
He's the guy.
You're the producer. Yeah. But how did, just briefly, I'd love to hear how that project came to be, because that is something that while it was shot on an iPhone, it was like perfect. It was a perfect medium for it.
I think it's a good example, and I'll give you a little bit of like, you know, sidebar of how we make movies through that. I've known Sean for 10 years. Coincidentally, one day I was on the jury for a film festival, and Ross Partridge was at my house, and I was like, I gotta watch these fucking movies, oh god. And we put in this movie, Prince of Broadway, and we got knocked out. And it was directed by this guy, Sean Baker. It was shot with some real people on the streets, but with actors mixed in, set in the whole culture of the guys who sell the knockoff purses in Manhattan. It was beautiful, it was funny, and then a couple of weeks later, Ross and Jen were in New York, and they were buying a bike from some dude who was selling bikes. And the guy's like, yeah, I'm a filmmaker. And they're like, oh, cool, have you made anything we've seen? He's like, no, you would never see it. I made this little movie, Prince of Broadway. And I was like, holy shit, we love this movie, and we became friends with him. And throughout the years, Sean's made a bunch of little movies, and I've just always let it be known to him that if you ever need anything from us in the way of support, in the way of money, even if you just need equipment, like, I love what you do, I want to be a part of what you do. That's, again, just a part of banding up, bringing your community together. And so he came to me about 2 years ago, and he said, I have this idea. It's set around these transgendered sex workers who hang out in a donut shop in Hollywood. I want to shoot it all on iPhones. It's completely improvised. And I was like, I know why you came to me, because everybody else passed on this. I totally get it. And I asked him, I said, what's the minimum amount of money you can make this movie for? And he told me, and it was very, very cheap. So I pulled together 2 partners, and we cut them the check. And what I did is I said, Doc, I'm gonna create a framework for you where you can make this movie exactly the way you want to make it. Never have to apologize to me, you ever have to check with me for, can I cast this, can I do this? You go out and make it, and then, you know, when we sell it, I'll make my money back and make a little bit, and then you just take the money and share it with the girls and share it with your team, and just do it. I had no idea he was going to hit it out of the park the way he did, and so what ended up happening is went to Sundance, and it sold very well. The movie was actually, despite the fact that it's a small art movie, was actually quite lucrative, and we ended up donating all of the money to both of the girls in the film, and to the LGBT Center, and to Sean, and to his crew, and like, it was a way to make a really raw, incendiary piece of art, and actually everybody did okay on it. And then Jay and I got asked to join the Academy last year, so I'm just name dropping all over the place, sorry. So I was at the Academy and I was hanging out with Rock now. And then we ran an Academy campaign for the movie, and we were very, very close to getting it nominated, which was so exciting. And the movie, you know, got all these awards. It's been really, really special. So that was a best case scenario.
That's a great film. Okay, let's open it up to some questions from the audience. How about you right there in the glasses?
Hi. I actually just work with Stephanie Lang with the Julia Roberts Company.
Oh, hi.
She says hi from Hawaii. But I have a question for you. So I have a website and I help screenwriters develop their projects. And my question is, what would be your advice to some of these screenwriters that I'm trying to help get their projects? I mean, at the very least, obviously, finance, if they don't have their own cameras or have any visions to be a filmmaker, what would be your advice on how to get these projects around, if they're good, obviously?
Yeah, I mean, I take kind of like a hard line with a lot of this stuff. This goes for actors, this goes for directors, this goes for producers, this goes for screenwriters. It's really hard, and particularly hard for screenwriters, because nobody wants to read your script. It just sucks. Until you've made something, until you've proved yourself, you're just basically a nuisance to everyone that you're trying to get your script to. So you have to find a way to make yourself valuable. And I know that the first response is, well, I'm not a director, and I'm not an actor, I'm just a writer. And then my basic response is like, then you're gonna be stuck. So I'm sorry, but that's just, if that's the way you think about it, you're kind of gonna go nowhere. So my advice is, go ahead and write the best script you can make. Your favorite script, don't even think about creative limits, don't even think about budgetary limits, make that movie. Then, go write something that can absolutely be made for under $10,000 and start shooting your favorite scene from that movie and become a director and read a book and figure it out over and over and over again. Shoot it 30 times until it gets good. And then at least you can go to a film festival with that scene and have somebody say, so wait, are you a director? No, I'm actually not a director. My main focus is writing. I directed it so I could get here. I would love for you to direct my script. Here it is. Otherwise, you're stuck. So.
Okay, let's see. Who's next?
There's a gentleman
right
here.
there.
Can you talk a little bit more about the profit sharing models?
No.
Okay.
Not at all. Yes, I will. It varies from film to film. A standard profit sharing model, in my experience, if you're making, say, like a $1 million movie, it's a very popular concept, right? The company comes in and they say, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to pay for the movie. We're going to take anywhere from 50 to 75% of the profits, depending on who you are. If you're a first-time filmmaker, you're probably looking at them hogging up about 75% of it. They're going to want to make back their $1 million. They're going to want to make back 20% return on that investment. And then they're going to have a ton of creative accounting costs, including all the flights first class they took to the festivals because they're rich people. And you will never see any of that money. And it's a real bummer. It's happened to me a couple of times on a few successful films. So I understand they're trying to secure their investment. Independent film is tricky. What we try to do is make films a lot smaller, a few $100,000 or so, and then what we try to do is carve out at least 75% for the people who are actually working on the film, so that they can put in that sweat equity, they can reap the rewards, they take the risk with me. I use lots of models. One model that I recommend for people for movies made under $200,000 is that the one union you normally have to abide by is SAG, and they have a minimum of paying actors $100 a day. So what I do is I use that as like a communist baseline. So whoever's on set makes $100 a day, whether you're a director, whether you're a PA, whether you're a caterer, you're all in it together. And then your back end gets weighted a little more depending on how much work you put in. And likewise, an actress like Elizabeth Moss, who comes to a movie bringing all of her popularity, she should get a nice chunk of that. But I also have a candid conversation where I say, you know, you deserve all this back end, but you want to like siphon a little bit for the fucking PA who's like not on Mad Men for 7 seasons, because they might like that. So we try to be as generous as is economically sustainable, but it's usually all built on very low upfront money, very little risk for us, so that we can be generous with the back end.
Cool. Next. Let's see. Someone way back there.
Sorry.
It's like Phantom of the Opera back there. We have no idea what you're doing. Hello.
You were sorry.
It's Michael Crawford.
You were talking about the evolution, what might happen in the next 10 years with the consolidation of things. It's kind of a broad question, but how do you view something like Maker? You know, like the tribe that's kind of sort of circling their wagons around, I guess, on-demand or streaming content.
Yeah, you're talking about in particular like shorter form digital content? Yeah, I mean the short form digital content has had like a big sine cosine wave in its popularity. Like there was a big boost for it for a little while, and we were like, oh shit, 15 minutes short online could be really, really valuable. And then all of a sudden it took a dip. They're like, nope, we only want 30 minutes, and then it kind of is starting to come back up again. I don't find it to be and I want to say this correctly, the smartest economic investment of your time and energy right now. I think that if you're gonna put in, say, $10,000 to make something cheap that's like digital, I highly recommend doing a feature over that kind of form. The payout can be a little bit bigger with the short form, particularly the web form, because it can lead to somebody saying, oh, you do TV well, so I might hire you to do a TV series. But in my opinion, if you're gonna spend, say, $5,000 to $10,000 making something, I recommend making a film which can, at the very least, play tons of festivals, hopefully make its money back by self-distributing on iTunes, make all your friends in your community, whereas you could kind of get stuck with a web series if it's not that great, and you might walk away with not as much.
Okay, next.
I'm interested in what you have to say about like the science and maybe spirit of collaboration. I'm really interested in being a great collaborator and bringing out people's best work, and I'd love to hear what you have to say about that.
The science and spirit of collaboration is such a great question. Like, she's very interested in collaboration, and less from a business model, but from like, you know, the creative, spiritual methodology of it. Yeah, I mean, I was just in a car with my friends this morning, and we were all talking about different processes. I just got off a movie where like I kind of got my ass handed to me in the first 2 days, where I was like, oh, I fucked all that up. I didn't empower the right people. I took too much control over certain people. Should have given them more latitude. It's very hard to get right. Good news is when you're working with people over time and you really know their energies, you can start to sort of what I call like, you know, build things for their success level, you know. So now, for instance, like when I'm writing a show and I know I'm going to cast Jen LaFleur in it, I know her so well and I know what she does so well, I can tailor make that part for her. And that's a really great thing to do, is to think about the people you're working with and think about what are the ways we can set them up to win. I sat down with a cast of Togetherness, my brother and I did, after season 1, and we said, okay, what did you love doing last season? And what did you kind of not like doing? And what's going to make you unbelievable to watch next season? What's going on in your life that you might want to bring into this stuff? I'm a really big believer in that, particularly when it comes to actors. So if on the writing side, I believe in casting the actors before you write for them when you're starting out, so you can really tailor make a role for their weaknesses, play to their strengths. You know, I think that, you know, as a director, it's really hard to learn how to delegate authority on smaller movies because you kind of feel like you want to get your hand in everything. But, you know, I try to think less about hiring the most experienced person necessarily for any crew head position, but hiring the nicest, the smartest, and the most loving person I can get on set, because I will sacrifice technical acumen any day for a loving person that I can go to and say, hey man, I'm feeling weird about what's going on here. I feel like you're not liking my direction and I'm scared we're not, you know, being able to have that conversation is just pivotal to me, you know, for the kinds of movies I'm making. Obviously, if you're making big picaresque sci-fi movies, you need more of that technical acumen. And then, you know, my biggest thing I would say is I really believe for your early movies, it's good to go away and do it in a place where, like, for instance, you rent a compound to shoot your movie in and you shoot in one of the houses and everybody's living in those other 4 houses together. You've removed yourself from your daily life and you've created a new family and a camp-like atmosphere, and everybody throws in together and you eat breakfast together and you like have dinner together and put on stupid music and have dance parties at night and just keep that energy going. And I think that giving points to people is very, very important. That everybody on a movie should have an ownership stake in the movie so that they feel like it's theirs, you know? And I think that, I'm rambling a lot, but this is just something I notice that works. If you have like a 15 or 20 person crew and everybody's talking about the scenes that you shot that day, and like the PAs get to weigh in on like what they thought and how they felt, and like everybody, that energy of just like, I value you beyond just the coffee you brought, I think it just kind of elevates things.
Thank you.
You better fucking clap. I nailed that one.
So you talked a little bit about making the jump from the independents to the studios and the hardships and challenges. Can you kind of take us into the executive room with the suits and tell us what that experience was like?
Yeah, and you know, I think I may have done I was speaking quickly because I didn't want to dwell on it. I may have done a little bit of an unfairness to like, you know, me versus the man. It's not quite that binary. I think what it is when you're doing something that's worth a lot of money, there's just fear involved that it won't make its money back. So I don't believe that the executives that I was working with had bad taste or anything like that. I believe what was happening is they were thinking, ooh, our last movie that we made that was in this realm actually didn't score, so we didn't hit the female demographic over 35, so if this movie could just look really pretty in the trailer, then maybe they'll come in. So you start getting notes about throw pillows, and it's pretty crazy. And something terrible that I learned throughout this process is that if you are an open person who's been to therapy and knows how to validate people and hear them out, you are often perceived as weak, malleable, and a potential pushover in this business, which is unfortunate. And I have a little bit of a temper, and I lost my temper on one of these movies when they, like, after a 13-hour shoot, came up and made us have a conversation with them in the van about a potential reshoot on a scene because of something extremely surface level, when I knew the performances were great. I knew if I asked my actors to reshoot it, I would lose their trust because they had given me a great performance. And I just started yelling, and I was like, I won't do it. I will not do this. This is unacceptable. We gave you the greatest performance, gave you everything you asked for here. This is ridiculous. Throw pillows do not make a movie. What the fuck is going on here? And then they started backing off, because I think they were like, these guys have vision. They're yelling. They must be auteurs. Which sucks so bad, you know? That was early in my career. It was my first movie. I can now probably make a movie in the studio system that's low budgeted. I can do it with HBO and still have those sensitive conversations, but it took me a long time to get here, because now I can just say to them, if they have questions, go watch this movie, go see this. This is what we're going for. You know what we agreed on. We talked about it. But first time out, it's pretty tough to avoid, you know. So it can be a very tricky process. The only thing I can recommend that is helpful to sort of lessen some of that stuff is to put together your movie as much as possible on your own before you take it to anyone. You want to be going in not with, here's a pitch of what I think the script could be. Do you want to buy the pitch and then maybe hire me to write 4 drafts, and then maybe see if we can cast, and then maybe see if we can greenlight? You really want to go in as much as possible, and I know this sounds like a high-class thing, but if you've made 3 low-budget movies that are good, you can do this. You want to go in and say, this is my movie, it costs X amount of dollars to make, this actor, this actress is in it, this is a budget for shooting 6 weeks in Detroit, we need $2.2 million, yes or no. You really want to be asking yes or no, so that you can be done with most of that process. There are inevitable post-production fights to be had, but getting into production, you want to show up with everything in place.
See who's next. You had your hand up.
Hi, so I am a 4th-year university student studying filmmaking in my young 20s, just like you were when you first started out, and I'm really excited. I'm excited to be here, and you know, looking forward to so much. But I mean, we all know it's a hard industry, and there's a lot of discouragement that comes with that. And I was just wondering, kind of how you dealt with that when you came across that, and then also just kind of how you stayed true to yourself throughout this entire career that you've had. And then also one more, just, sorry.
This is too many questions. I mean, this is just, did they teach you anything in
So
school?
sorry, you're 19 right now.
Oh, you're a 4th year now, I see.
So also kind of going from behind the camera to in front of the camera, that's something that I kind of have passions for both, and I was just wondering how you approach that. You know, when you're in front of camera, do you kind of have to turn off that creative control and just kind of turn off that director, producer side of you, or?
Yeah. So, you know, to your main question of staying true to yourself, it really is about that whole process that I tried to walk through of like making things on your own. And that's really the only way to guarantee it. There are probably other ways, but that's the only way I know. You know, in terms of not getting down and not getting discouraged, band up. I don't know if you feel like you have people who get you in your film school class, or people that you feel like you can lean on, but I have my brother, and we didn't let each other drop too far, and that was really, really helpful. So just strength in numbers, and then there's Xanax too. And you know, in terms of the in front of the camera and behind the camera, I have two modes. One, if I'm just acting in something, that's really lovely for me, and I tend to turn off the director portion because I enjoy just being there and being led through something. But when you're acting and directing, say, or acting and producing or writing, you know, I think it's a very good thing to be conscious of both, you know? I mean, I'd probably get in trouble with this if I said this in a traditional acting class, but there are moments in togetherness, for sure, when I am thinking, as we're acting, like, okay, I think I did really good work on the first 3 takes of this scene, and I think I've got that. I'm gonna push this button right now to get this out of this person because their response will be really interesting to get. And so there are times when I have that filmmaker brain on, and I think that if you're interested in being in front of the camera and directing, I think there are ways to engineer things for yourself to win. You know, you should think about what you are really, really good at doing. If dogs make you cry in a way that is just amazing, make your little dog movie. Like, do it and show them what you got, you know? If you happen to be just like really funny with 3 beers in you, like, do that too. And those are elements where I think you can help to build things for yourself as a filmmaker and as an actor. I don't know if that helps.
Next over here.
Yeah, I have a writing specific question. Something that stands out to me about all of your work is how honest the writing is. Genuine scenarios, and actually what people would say, I feel myself relate to a lot of the dialogue. And I was curious how you get in the mindset of different characters and write from their perspective.
Yeah, it's a good question. All false modesty aside, I would say that a lot of the times the stuff that I write isn't as well voiced as it comes out on the screen, and that happens due to the actors re-saying those lines and giving them the latitude to improvise. And when I say improvise, it's not like going on a joke run for 20 minutes. It's about ingesting what we've written in the script, understanding the story beats, and then re-saying them in a way that feels more genuine to their character. I never get it right on the page. If we shot word for word what I wrote for Togetherness, it would just be about, honestly, I think half as good as the show is. So I really rely on my actors for a lot of help with that. One thing that does help me in particular get more, at least truthful sounding dialogue, if not totally differentiated from character to character, is sometimes I speak my scripts into like a dictaphone, or you can actually use dictation right into Final Draft now. And that helps me stutter and stammer and weird ellipses and commas and cutoffs and all those things the way that, you know, I talk, I guess, or people that I know talk, and maybe adds a little bit of that subconscious sense of realism if you speak it rather than do it with your fingers.
We have time for 2 more questions before we shift gears. So let's see.
So you've given a lot of notes via like the production process, but
Your beard is so good, man.
Dude, my beard says so much.
What are we talking about here? Are we talking 2 years?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, go ahead.
Year and a half.
Year and a half, okay.
Yeah. I thought you were
You're
saying
an early bloomer.
Me 2 years ago. So you talk a lot about the production and shooting process. Your background is in editing. I just want to know, especially for those $5 shorts, like, how do you manage the post side? How do you know when it's right?
Yeah.
Do you just get it out there? Like,
It's so hard, yeah, the post side's hard. That's where I lean most heavily on my circle of collaborators. I mean, again, I keep bringing them up, but like Ross and Jen are at every test screening of every movie I've made over the last 10 years. And they know what I'm capable of, they know what I can do, they know not to ask of me certain things that I can't do, they know how to push me in directions that they know I excel in. I have 20 more people in that sort of group. Like when I'm editing Togetherness, for instance, every time an episode is done, I put it up in front of a group of 30 people. And I say, what's happening? What are you getting? Are you feeling this from this character? And that's how I start to nuance things, because they'll say, oh, dude, you really like hit that way too hard. Like, I saw it in the first close-up, I saw it in the second close-up, and then you put the music under it, and then you did the zoom in, like, enough, I got it. So I'm like, great, I can go be more subtle. And I dial it back, show it again. Everybody missed it. Shit, okay, now we go find the middle ground. It's a little bit of a scientific process in that regard. I really don't believe in, for my process, being an auteur. I'm not an auteur. Like, the Coen brothers are auteurs. They see the movie in their head, and they go on set, and they just walk through it. And they all have a great time. And I'm so fucking jealous, because I start with a seed of something interesting, and then we discover everything, and it's like a documentary edit where I'm just grueling through it, trying to find it, you know? So, long story short, get it fat, interesting, keep all the good stuff in there, throw it up on your TV for 6 people, let everybody tear into it, take their notes, do it again, keep doing it.
One more.
Up here.
Oh, we can do 2 more, I think, if there's a fight.
I am only paid for one more question.
I saw the puffy chair at Sundance in 2003,
Oh.
and I walked away with your little pen.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I have it on my desk, but I'm writing. And I went with Boise State University with a whole group of us, and we loved your movie. And the part that we loved...
And everything I've made since then is just downhill.
There was a whole group of women filmmakers together, and we loved the part when the girlfriend asks in the middle of the night, when you're trying to get to sleep, what are you thinking? That was really a fantastic part, because that really pinned down when women are asking their husbands or their boyfriends, what are you feeling? What are you thinking? And that was really clever. We drove all the way laughing back to Boise. It was a great movie. But we felt like we walked away with a piece of your film because we all had a pen.
Guys, these are the kind of questions I want. Take note. Stand up. Compliment me. Compliment me long and hard. And then, and sit the fuck down.
And I will be contacting your agent. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. You're very sweet.
All right, one more.
Yes, the gentleman over
that
here.
was so difficult.
Oh,
Okay, over there. Yeah.
Just yell it.
Okay, so I've already kind of prepared myself for as much disappointment as you've already kind of dished out. Specifically, in your head is a period piece where it seems to me that it's inherently expensive to create. So does that relegate you going to only a certain select people with big bankrolls and you're doomed to fail, or how does that work?
And you're talking about a script that you've written? Or an idea, yeah. So the question was about, prepared for failure, and even more so worried because he's got a period piece, which is expensive. It's difficult, but my advice, and this is just my way, is you gotta get that out. You gotta write that. That's gonna be your passion thing. You should put that down. You should know that you wanna make that. You should never deny that. But the smarter move after you've done that is to look at that thing and say, what is the beating heart of this thing that I can still get and make without a really expensive period piece? And can I lift something out of there and put it into the realm of something that can be shot on my block and in my home and in my car and in my office space and in my dad's truck and with my son's hoverboard and all the things that are sitting around my house? I'm gonna gather them up and I'm gonna stare at them on the floor. I'm gonna say, I own all these things, and I own an iPhone, and I got some friends, how can I put the beating heart of my really expensive dream project right into this stuff so I can go make my movie starting next weekend? And that's the only way you can guarantee that you're going to get your stuff made. So I really, really recommend going to that sort of, I guess what we call the available materials school of filmmaking.
All right, so I think now we're going to move over to the screenwriting portion of our Screenwriters Lab.
The Screenwriters Lab, ladies and gentlemen! Before I get off the stage, I want to thank, I'm not leaving, guys, sorry, I'm not leaving. Before I do anything else, I want you to know that Sun Valley Film Festival has been very generous, been very sweet, and Emily made this shirt. She told me that backstage.
They will be for sale.
That happened.
They will.